getting the killer apps on that teeny-weeny screen. How are you going to do it?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the Apple Watch gives a lot of opportunities to developers. With the small screen, we're expecting to have a high frequency of sessions, but very short session lengths, 5 to 10 seconds. We're calling them micro sessions. And as a result, when it comes to news consumption, traditionally this has been done on a larger screen format. Now, we're lucky in the case of Summary and Yahoo News Digest that we built an algorithm that can take long content and automatically summarize it down into the salient and visual points. And as a result, we think that our approach to news is going to be great on the Apple Watch, given those constraints.
All right, but how small does it need to be? You're saying 5 to 10 seconds. How are you going to take a long-form piece of news and get it that little?
Well, I mean, you'll see next month what the product manifestation is, but we've been thinking a lot about what's the salient unit of information when it comes to assimilating a news story. And in the case of Digest, the product that we have out today, we send these digests once in the morning, once in the evening. They're finite. They contain all the need-to-know stories. What's interesting is each story is comprised of a summary, a textual summary, and then these visual units of information that we call atoms. And so in the case of the watch, we're going to give you the visual information in the form of these atoms, and then also something interesting around the summarization. So we've been doing a lot of experiments. I mean, we were fortunate that Apple approached us in September ahead of the watch launch to talk about how we would integrate Digest into it. And so we've had a long time to conceptualize what we would see as being the ideal news experience. And it'll be very different to what the other news products will be doing on the watch. We've tried to come up with something unique and specific for a wrist experience.
Nick, can you explain to our viewers how Yahoo's going to make money working with Apple to miniaturize the news on these watches?
I mean, there are monetization strategies, I think, when it comes to a watch experience. Because of the small screen and these micro sessions, the content that will be shown for advertisements needs to be very native and useful to the user. Because you only have 5 to 10 seconds to get their attention, the user is going to expect to get the information they came to the service for, and then if there is an ancillary advertisement, it needs to be contextually relevant and also part of the experience. There's no point just flashing up a banner halfway through a user experience. That'll turn users off. So in the case of News Digest, we're still focused on a great product experience before the monetization. I mean, we're trying to innovate news consumption in general. Once we feel like we've gotten to a threshold when it comes to kind of the volume of users that we have, we can then look at different approaches to the advertisements and monetization.
But for app developers, you simply can't fit 5, 10, 20 apps on that small screen. Is the boom of wearables going to hurt apps?
I don't think so. I think it's going to have to, ingenious solutions to problems like news consumption, social media, these kinds of services, they all need to rethink their approach to the watch. I think it actually provides an interesting challenge for developers. A lot of innovation comes out of very large constraints, but also tackling new platforms and getting that iterative process so we can look at user feedback and then quickly update the product as we see fit.
Are you going to wear the Apple Watch?
I am. I'm really looking forward to it. When it comes out in late April, we're going to have Digest on there. There'll be other Yahoo products on there, so I can't wait to test it out for myself.
All right, but hold on. As like a super cool 19-year-old rocking that shirt and the mustache, are you going to buy the $10,000 version?
No, I'm not. I'll probably get the nice, colorful one. It'll fit the shirt.
And Nick, how about the Tag Heuer watch? I don't know if you were aware of the announcement that was just made in Switzerland by the CEO of Tag Heuer that they're working with Google and Intel to create a competitor to the Apple Watch. Is there any buzz about that out in San Francisco, and are you guys developing any apps for that?
We're pretty platform agnostic, so we've also looked at the Android watch experience. I think it's interesting you're saying with Tag and Google teaming up there is a massive opportunity for the fashion industry to collaborate with the technology companies. As you're kind of alluding to, watches are a fashion statement. They symbolize, a certain status, class, things like that. And in the case of the Apple Watch, I think they worked very hard with Johnny Ive and Mark Newson to come up with a very kind of visually appealing as well as technologically relevant experience. But over time, I think you'll see the fashion brands beginning to work together with the tech companies, given this is such a fashion item.
We know how secretive Apple is. Did they give you access to the watch? Have you worked with the watch when you were creating your app?
I mean, we had no idea what the form factor anything was prior to the announcement. We were just told to work on new, interesting ways of consuming news on a smaller screen. Some developers obviously can go into, have been selected by Apple to go in and kind of do some testing on the watch. But we're really excited just to get it out there with everyone else. And at the end of the day, it'll be survival of the fittest. The best apps will get the most downloads and kind of dominate this platform. And we're really excited about our news approach. We think it's novel in comparison. If you look at a lot of the other news aggregators, they're simply taking their content on the phone and mimicking it on the watch. They're not really thinking, what's the consumption behavior going to be? How can we make this content experience useful when you have those constraints of a small screen?
All right, I've got to ask before we go, especially because I met you when you were only 16. Here you are, 19. What made you decide to go back to school, especially now that you're in the tech world? In the universe of Mark Zuckerberg's, many say, who needs that college education? I mean, you sold your company for $30 million large without even a high school degree.
You know, it's interesting. It's very personal to me. I'm very much into nourishment through knowledge and self-learning. It, makes me feel good, and I need to be intellectually stimulated. And so in the case of going to Oxford University, I wanted to study a course like computer science and philosophy, so I could formalize my programming knowledge, but also broaden my skills in the philosophy kind of section. And so I'm very much enjoying balancing the Oxford education with what I do at Yahoo, and I want to go and do another company in the future, clearly.
And what are you majoring in?
Philosophy and computer science, that's the course. So it's a bit of a weird course. It's an interesting combination, but it's very relevant. There's a course at Stanford called Symbolic Systems that Marissa Mayer, in fact, herself did, that's also very similar. Computer science, AI, philosophy, these kinds of things.
Nick, you never cease to amaze me. I, in fact, did go to college, and I never thought it was because I sought a nourishment. What was it? A nourishment of learning? That's
nourishment
what you want?
of knowledge.
Yeah, nourishment of knowledge. I was never seeking a nourishment of knowledge.
That could be a new tag for Yahoo on their homepage.
Nourishment of knowledge. Nick, great to see you again. I love that mustache, and congratulations. Gosh, what an extraordinary young guy.